you are seeing and hearing me okay. Give technology a couple seconds to tune in here. Today is Motivational Monday, and it is also part two of two workouts that we're doing this week. I'm trying out a new webcam today, hoping to come through a little clearer and will be a little brighter once I get back under my lights. So I hope you guys had a great weekend. If you are joining me today, please just let me know if you can see and hear me on the other end, and I'll get rambling here. Today is part two of three bone building sessions. Last week, beginner, entry level. I can't stand for long periods. I need to sit. Maybe I'm unable to bear weight. Maybe you're recovering from something. So bone density and rebuilding it is a few things. It's never just one person that we're catering to. I see I do have somebody tuning in, and I see I'm on Facebook. So I think I'm coming through on your end. If you are joining me today, whether you are dealing with bone density issues on your own, perhaps you're caring for someone, perhaps you are a care provider, a therapist, bone density is not a setting. It is not a program. It gets really challenging for those of you looking at vibration machines out there, because many companies are selling all kinds of different equipment, not just vibration machines. But more importantly, many of you are looking at these technologies because you're starting perhaps from scratch, or you're starting from a place of recovery. If you are active regularly, it's kind of a commonly known thing that being active is part of keeping our bones strong. But sometimes we get to a point in life, or we've had a setback where traditional activities or exercises just aren't as possible or as kind on the body that you're dealing with. So maybe you're dealing with arthritis, excess weight. There's a lot of different reasons that our bones maybe have deteriorated. I'm speaking more to like a decrease in activity, but sometimes medically there's treatments we need to go through, or just our lifestyle has detracted from us just being the active creatures that we are meant to be. So the big secret about bone density that I revealed last week in the beginner session, today's going to be more of an intermediate level 5-move workout. For those of you that have followed any of my sessions, I like to keep it stupidly simple. We are creatures of habit, and if you are not coming from a place of being regularly active, a vibration machine simply offers you an environment. It's an environment that reduces the amount of impact, increases the amount of benefits through various different types of micro movements that are further stimulating your muscles. And guess what? Muscles pulling on bones make them stronger. Ideally, weight bearing. So bearing your weight is the big secret to building bone density. You need to bear your weight. It's what you can or cannot, or are you willing or not willing to do to do weight bearing exercises. So if you're not coming from a place of purpose, you're going to the gym all the time, or you've got an active background, keep it simple. Keep it consistent. And that's really the key to getting stronger bones long term. Now, bones are a longer term benefit. Last week, I just want to recap very briefly for those of you that are dealing with perhaps, poor stability. You're coming from a place where balance isn't maybe as awesome as it could be. Bone density is kind of two parts of a discussion. So if we're on this end of the scale where we're very frail, we're very deteriorated, we're losing muscle mass, maybe dealing with atrophy, you're recovering in a hospital bed, you're not going to be able to do something perhaps like someone that's not dealing with any issues, doesn't have the aches, the pains, and is able to be regularly active. So what type of weight bearing activities you do is really going to be driven by where you are at personally. And my first ask is, if you are looking at using your vibration plate and you're in a recovery or a surgery situation, balance is really, really something that you've probably already realized you're lacking. And it's the first thing that you can actually improve using a vibration plate. So the bone density, the muscle strength, the toning, the abs, whatever the big goals are, those are a little bit longer, and they will come with consistent use. But it's the regular, consistent, I recommend using your machine regularly, for pain, moving lymph, just the symptom management that we're all dealing with in some way, shape, or form. And through all those little, sessions of using your machine, anytime you can bear weight and get on this thing, you're building better bones. So keep it simple and stop beating yourself up. If you're not doing the big workout, that is no reason to not start progressing today. So if you've got a plate and you're in a situation where you're able to bear weight, you can go for walks, you can do stairs, you're not really dealing with, a risk of falling. Today is kind of your wheelhouse. We're going to do standing exercises only. You'll notice my chair is not in front of the machine. If you are dealing with fatigue, you're coming from a place of poor health, I do recommend using a chair and starting in a seated position, or follow us along and do it that way. So slurp of coffee, and we're going to get started. So for those of you that are using your plate regularly, this is a little bit more of a regular routine that I would love to see. Everybody's going to ask me, how often and how long. It really, just like the type of exercises, it depends on you and where you're physically starting. For all of the exercises, to keep it super simple, I need to turn the machine on. I would like you setting your machines in the movement style of oscillating. All of my sessions are oscillating. If you haven't joined me before, oscillating is that mimic of walking movement. All of LifePro's models offer it. And I would like you to set it at a mid to high speed range. Very commonly, most people selling equipment, including LifePro 1,000 times does better support than any company out there. They offer you everything they can regularly by 3 of us and a million resources besides. But they don't know you individually. They haven't had a personal relationship with you for 5 years. So when you call in and you're dealing with conditions, the way that I recommend using a machine might be different than Roseanne or Joel or someone else. I'm just coming from a place of different experience. I've specialized in them for years, and I deal with a lot of chronic issues. So I like to start using the machine at a mid to higher speed, not slow. It's a little different like a treadmill. But I also like to talk about amplitude. Amplitude is how close or how far apart your feet are when you're on this machine. And it increases or decreases the impact, the amount of movement. So I would like for the first exercise, which is just a warm-up, I want you to think functional. I want your feet no more than hip width apart, not wider. If you find hip width apart on that mid-speed, I'm working on a Rumblex today, so I would suggest on this model with 60 speeds, the 30 to 40 range. If you're working on a waiver, maybe the 60 to 70 range if you're on one of the new Hex plates. They've got, speeds are just a way of breaking the different hertz that these machines offer into different level increments of increase or decrease. So you can play with the speed ranges. It's never one exact number or frequency. And if you're joining me today looking for that number, you've been ill-informed. There's lots of studies out there at different ranges. It's weight-bearing exercises that increase bone density, not any one setting. So just by standing here for 30 seconds to a minute, the knees are slightly bent. We're increasing the circulation, the blood flow. We're just kind of warming up the body for what I want to do to it next. If range of motion is lacking or you've been spending a lot of time sitting today, I like to add a couple of little pelvic tilts. So we're just tilting backwards, forwards, backwards, and you'll feel a nice stretch in the arch of that back. We're not looking like this. We're just moving that pelvis, and you may have lots more range than me. You may have less. We're just moving the hips forward and backward. The goal is to loosen them up for the mean squats and lunges I want to do to you next. You might want to do little hulas, okay? So the reason I would call today intermediate is you're able to stand without freaking out like you're going to fall off the machine. So if you do feel, you're taking on a little more than you're ready for, good for you. I like to hear that, but maybe you need to bring the chair back and just give yourself something to stabilize yourself with. If you're feeling this exercise is wobbly for you and you're not feeling stable, just a suggestion. Okay, so the next variation, I want to warm up the arms a little bit because we're going to be picking up some weights today. The knees are slightly bent. We're not so deep that we're in a squat where we're feeling it primarily in the thighs. We're going to stay in that pelvic tilt position. We're going to raise our arms up. This is my new arm move. I can't do all the moves all the time, but this is my new fave lately. So I'm looking like a football goalpost, okay? And we're going to pull the arms forward, nice straight core, engage the core. Try bringing those elbows together. Doesn't matter if you can't touch them, but that's the goal. Hold for 2, 3, and we're going to come back. And we're going to try, push that chest out. We're going to try pinching those shoulder blades back, pull those arms back. Hold for 3 to 4 seconds. I'd love to see 3 to 5 reps of this. Now, if you're coordinated enough, you can mix it in with your pelvic tilt. So if you want to save time and you don't want to do the pelvic tilt, then this, combine them. 1. So tilt forward, elbows together, tilt back, arms back, hold, 3, 4, tilt forward. Weight should be primarily on your heels, 70 to 80%. If you're feeling it more in the shins or the knees, the body's trying to cheat and shift your weight forward. Don't let it do that, okay? So yeah, it's good 3 to 4, maybe 5 or 6 reps if you're feeling really tight, just to loosen things up. Now we're going to move on to some squats. If you've never done a squat before, I'm going to show you very quickly. Basically, you kind of squat all the time, but you may not call it that. Squats are the most functional movement. They're what we do when we get down on the floor and pick up our socks. They're what we do or supposed to do when we're lifting things. So the quads and the glutes, the big muscle groups, they're going to burn your calories. So if you're looking to lose some weight as well, we're doing this for the purposes of getting strong and getting those leg muscles and those bones strong. So our squat, depending on your range of motion, I might be able to go a lot lower. You might be more like here. Work within your own range of motion, and we're not going to move. We're going to go into what I call a static position. If you're dealing with bone density issues, you probably got joint arthritic issues, things like that, and less movement is going to be kinder. But I think you'll find by not moving, you're going to fatigue quicker, and you're going to be able to hold a better position. The better your position, the faster you're going to fatigue. So all the more reason if you got inflammation in the joints. I've got some of LifePro's adjustable dumbbells, and one of the easiest ways to really ramp up that bone density is to increase your mass. So if you don't have dumbbells, pick up a jug of milk, pick up a backpack and put 10 pounds of rice in it. I'm working with 15 pounds aside, okay? Another reason I really don't want you moving if you're not used to doing squats now, you're challenging yourself more with weights. I don't want the technique going out the window. So we're just going to squat. So I've got 30 pounds extra on my frame. Yeah, I'm going to poop out quicker. So if you're short on time or you're dealing with lots of inflammation or joint issues, you can still work those muscles out, but do it quicker. Reduce the amount of time it gets you to fatigue. Think HIIT style training. Okay, if you're dying, stand up. What I would like to get from you is a good 3 to 5 reps where you have to quit. So you should be dying probably in the 30-second range. If you're not dying, you either need to add more weight or you're in better shape than you're giving yourself credit for. What I don't want you doing is exceeding a minute. So no more than a minute on this one. I probably shouldn't have picked up 30 pounds. I've already moved a fair bit of equipment today. But 3 to 5 good reps. You want to get to the point where you're done. And you'll actually feel you're huffing and you're puffing and you're breathing harder. So don't feel like there's no cardio when this is going on either. Okay? 2. You should feel sufficiently warm, maybe a little wobbly. If you've taken on more weight than maybe you're ready for, you don't necessarily need to do 3 to 5 reps. If you're building more for endurance and trying to get that style of training, maybe less weight and longer reps. There's no perfect path, but adding weights is a really good way to not only build the bones and challenge them further, but to fatigue quicker if that's a goal for you. So the next one we're going to move into is an assisted calf raise. So calf raises aren't something everybody does every day of the week, but they're kind of a side thought to me with all of my clients in that 50 plus range, which is the bone density crowd. That's when we start becoming conscious of it. But ankle strength and flexibility not only makes the range on your squats better, that's kind of my little side catch, but it's the blood flow, the return. As we get older, many of us are dealing with heart issues and other things. We want to keep those calves strong, not only for your strength and your day-to-day, but in that blood flow and that lymph return, especially if you spend a lot of time sitting. So an assisted calf raise is simply giving yourself something to hang on to when you're doing it. I don't want anybody rolling their ankles or doing anything like that. So I want you just bending the knees slightly, sort of like a light squat, and we're just going to raise up on the balls of the feet, hold, 2, 3, back down. And I would love to see you do 3 to 5 reps of this. For those of you that are a little bit more conditioned, you should be hanging on for stability, but not for dear life. Make sure that you're getting the weight up on those calves. If you want to challenge yourself a little bit more and your balance is better, bend deeper, stay in that squat, and come up, and you'll feel when you're a little deeper, more mass, more stability on those calves. Okay? Don't try this with the weights until you've done this a few times, please. Okay? 3 to 5 reps. You can also, if you have tight calves, a good little one I always feel I kind of have to do. This isn't in the 5 moves, but I just put my feet off the edge. If you're on one of the Rumblexes, it's usually heavy enough to do this. If you're on a Waver or a Mini, the lighter, more portable models, you can do one leg at a time. Okay? So stretch them out after as well. Okay, the last mean one I'm going to do to the legs is we're going to do some lunges. Now, if you are working out regularly and you are using weights, you could certainly add your lunges to this. The reason I wanted to add a lunge, it's going to be a little bit more booty. The legs are a big part of how we stay upright, and I help progress you to more exercises, which means better bone density. But a lot of it is also, many of you are dealing with hip and pelvic issues, and it's a really good way to sort of isolate one side over the other. The whole exercise we're doing here is still at that mid-speed range. For this one, I want your foot just slightly off center, so a little closer than what you would have been standing hip width apart. And I'm using the Aeroflex step as just more real estate that you can put your other foot on to keep you more functional, more level, and actually more body mass going into the machine. You can certainly do it without the step in place, but you've got a little more mass going into that back leg than you do the front leg. Because today is about bone density, I just wanted to show you this variation to show you how to get the most body weight, and it's also more functional. This is more like how we're walking across the floor. So one foot is forward. I would recommend kind of doing like a T with your back foot to give you a little wider stance. Don't be standing in a line like this. Okay, widen that back foot up is what you might not be able to see I'm doing here. So widen that back foot up. We want this front leg straight like a table. I gotta speed this up again. Okay, and then you're simply going to come down and just hold. 2, 3, back up. 3 to 5 reps a side. You can switch legs in between if you like. Okay. The back leg's kind of like the rudder. It's the one holding you stable. You want to keep this one good and straight. I'm a little long in the legs, so if you're a little bit more conditioned or you've got longer legs like I do, you may need to adjust where your step is for your own level of challenge. And if you feel comfortable, like I say, you can certainly add weights to this one as well. And then make sure, of course, you've always got one side that's stronger than the other. If you're dealing with an issue on one side and are unable to, to have the same fatigue levels, if you will, you might want to give the weak side a little bit of attention. You can train them independently. So if you do have one side specifically that you're trying to target, the lunge is a really good way to do that. So again, 3 in a row, alternate them, however you want to do it. The very last one I want to do, which is going to be kind of an introduction to next week's advanced. There's 3 series. Last week was beginner. Today's intermediate. Next week's going to be advanced. We're going to get down on the ground now. And the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to show you another alternative with the step. So I'm turning the direction and I'm putting it like a T with the machine. And many of you want to do upper body. We dream of doing upper body, but if you're not doing upper body regularly and then you decide to start doing it on a vibration machine, the technique kind of goes out the window. And there's a couple of tricks I want to give you here to minimize the head vibe experience. Head vibrations are not harmful, but especially my ladies, bone density isn't just below the waist. Many of us are dealing with bad shoulders. We don't do the upper body exercises we know we're supposed to be doing. So a vibration plate is also a hack. It's a really great way to reduce the amount of time you have to be doing upper body. But there's a couple of tips I just want to give you for the head vibration. So before I get into the mean part of the push-up, Just like when you're standing, how far apart or how close your hands are, that is your amplitude. That's the distance each time the plate cycles through a movement, how much it's moving you. And that increases or decreases the amount of movement and how much your muscles are having to react and pull on the bones. So wider isn't necessarily better. Like if it's uncomfortable and you're fighting it and resisting it, no, I would rather, again, like standing, more speed, less amplitude. So bring it again up to that mid-range. I've already talked more than 10 minutes, so if your machine is shut off, mid speed. And just, if you've never done this before, you can kneel on the step or just sit on the ground in front of it with your head out of the equation. You can sort of feel with your hands close is less shake than more. Now, in this respect, it's kind of nice therapeutically up into the neck and the shoulders, but when you start getting body weight into it and your upper body's having to sustain your weight, you want to make sure you're comfortable. So tip number 1 is hands closer. Tip number 2 is it's a little angle trick. If you are traditionally, when you're doing a push-up, you're looking down at your hands, I want you pushing your body forward just slightly so that the hands are underneath the shoulders. And what you'll notice is the head shake almost completely dissipates, and it's more now in the neck and the shoulders, where usually, certainly from a therapeutic point, you want the attention. If you're looking at doing a push-up, I want you being comfortable with this, because once we add more mass and it gets more challenging, you don't really want to be stopping and moving your hands around. You just want to go. So keep the shoulders over the hands. If you are able to do a full push-up and you're doing this on the ground now, then do one. If you're not, start on your knees. It takes about half the body weight out of the equation. This is also nice therapeutically. You could roll the shoulders, the neck, whatever you do when you're sitting. But now your upper body is having to bear the mass of everything basically from the waist up. So this is a great way to start. And then as you get more conditioned, yes, we can incorporate more mass. It's kind of hard to add weights to an exercise like this, but there are ways through weighted vests. Have your 2-year-old sit on your shoulders if you're able. There's lots of different ways you can incorporate mass here, but if you are able to do, let's say 30 seconds to a minute on a push-up, you're probably ready to start adding some slow dynamic movement, and you probably have the technique to be doing so. So the big reason I like to keep exercises simple is many of us need to learn or relearn the technique. The more effective your technique when you combine it with the stimulus of the environment that makes them more effective, the longer or the quicker you're going to fatigue and the less time you're going to expose inflammation and arthritic joints, if that's something that you're dealing with. And it's usually a secondary issue if you're dealing with a big a big osteoporosis diagnosis or something of that nature. So I just want to not blind myself any further here. And I want to get to your questions now. So the biggest tip, if you're just joining me partway through, that I want to reiterate is bone density is not a setting. It is not a speed. You may have been told that, but we're very trusting, many of us. And if somebody says, well, this is the best thing to do for that, how much of us actually do our own homework and look into that? And I get a lot of questions. There's somebody marketing it out there, but I'm getting lots of questions about a certain study. This guy told me that it has to be, this frequency. Hi, Diana. But, really, no, that's one study of thousands and thousands around these machines. And there's two numbers. There's your speed, your level, your frequency, but there's also the amplitude. And that's a very individual thing. These machines feel different to each of us, and what you can tolerate, what your own sensitivities are very different. And the sooner you learn the relationship between your feet and hands and the distance on the plate, I see comments all the time. Oh, I couldn't imagine going faster. It's too scary. Well, you've probably got your feet really wide, or you're locking your legs. It's, there's no wrong ways to use the machine, but there's certainly more comfortable or more effective ways. So, if you haven't been given a terrible amount of guidance in starting your machine, or, you're kind of winging it, there's basic instruction through the book, but if you're dealing with chronic issues, I will, after I'm wrapped up today, link my document to all the sessions I've ever done. And, everything from Parkinson's to scoliosis to MS to full paralysis. There isn't a session I probably haven't done twice on LifePro's page. Today is more workout oriented. Many of you wanted something that you could follow along, but not extensively intimidating in a big 15-20 minute thing. So each of these sessions, the third one coming up next week, are going to be 5 move. Today we started with some standing pelvic tilts. We did some goalpost arm reaches. We did some calf raises, which is an important exercise if you're not doing them now, for everybody to keep thinking about. Step ups are another one I wanted to cover, but I think you'll find if you're just starting out, but you're in better shape, if you will, a lunge is going to be a really good exercise to start with, and we covered that today. Especially if you're trying to gain strength and balance things, maybe there's not a balance between the two sides of your body, or maybe you've had a recovery on one side. And then the last one we jumped into was a push-up. Many of you are dealing with head to toe bone density issues, and standing on the plate, bearing your weight consistently is a great way to passively achieve that. But if you're dealing with deterioration in the neck and the spine and the shoulders, or you just have aches and pains there, exercise improves a lot of things. The plate is just an environment that makes the exercise more possible and more effective than doing those same exercises on the floor. So keep it simple and keep it consistent, and that's what's going to win the race in the long run. So today, there's a couple reminders I want to give you as well. We have a review contest going on, and last week I had a little bit of a glitch on our end with the streaming service, and I think my beginner session only aired on the main LifePro page. So if you're looking for it on YouTube or the VIP group, which you would normally see it at, for sure, it's the VIP group that you'll see us. It wouldn't stream to all pages. So I've put the link also in this comment so that you guys can look that up. There's a review contest wrapping up the end of this week. So if you've purchased anything new, make sure you get your info in. And the link to the last session is also in that comment as well. If you found today was a little too challenging, or you just wanted some more backstory on where we're going till next week, you can see the link there, and that's on the main page. Now is the time. If you do have questions, again, thank you, Diana, for joining me. I see there are others here. Do you have bone density questions? If you do, and if you're joining me, please tell me where you're from. If you're doing something now or seeing some good results or anything that you'd like to share. The coolest thing about LifePro and its sessions is that there's never one way to cross the finish line. It really, you want to pick something that you're going to enjoy when you're using these tools. And a lot of times there's so much choice, it gets overwhelming, and we don't do anything. But be realistic, whether it's a workout, whether it's a tool you're looking at, be realistic and look within yourself and say, what am I actually going to use? What's going to fit best into my lifestyle? Do I want some, am I just using it at home? Do I want to be able to take it with me? So sometimes it's not the matter of what I think is the best machine or the best massage gun or the best red light. It's about how you as an individual and your preferences will see yourself doing it. So be realistic, be consistent when you do decide what that tool is that you're going to use. Using it regularly is the best way to get success. I'm not going to answer a whole lot of how often questions. If you're doing exercise on your plate and you're actually putting forth effort and you're fatiguing, then you should only do it once a day. But nothing saying, I'm all about symptom management. So if it's taking away your pain, or it's helping your swelling, or it's helping you sleep, go for it. Use it as often as you like. But wellness and feel good is a couple 3 minutes. It's not a 15-20 minute use every time. Okay, that's where people overdo it. Too much time and too much wide with the hands and the feet. And then lastly, I can't reiterate enough, as I said, for symptom management. A lot of times, you start moving and feeling better, and we stop the symptom management until things surface again. Just because you're moving and feeling better, you got that way for a reason. Be consistent. The feel good stuff adds up to a lot of good bone density, strength, and weight loss too. What I wanted to show you today was just pushing yourself a little bit, but you can keep it simple and still get a huge effect, not only on the bones, but the calories and how you move and feel overall. So Everybody knows everything. Nobody has any questions for me at all today. Well, I've either done a very good job or I've talked you all to sleep, and either scenarios are quite possible. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. I will be here, as I said, next week, same place, same time, and it's going to be a little bit more complicated. If you do not have the ability to do what we did today, next week's going to be a little bit more challenging. We're going to get into some planks. We're going to get into some dynamic movement. And yes, we're going to be working with some weights again too. So if you don't have something, think of something that you can use around the house. It doesn't have to be a fancy set of weights. I think Karen might have a question here. Hi, Karen. Thank you. I love these. I'm glad if you're just seeing me now, we went over 5 moves. Karen, I will be doing 5 more advanced moves next week. And I've placed the link in the comment above, Karen, here to last week's beginner session. Perhaps you're coming from a place of recovery, or where you're at in what you can do on your machine, it varies. You trip off the curb and sprain your ankle, you can still use the machine, but you may need to modify how you use it. So remember, I always like to say you are only limited by your imagination and your range of motion, and I'm here to fill in the blanks. So you guys have a great rest of the week. Be consistent, and I look forward to seeing you next Monday. Don't forget to fill out your entries for the review contest before that one ends. And thank you for joining me on a Monday. Have a great rest of your week, guys. Don't work too hard. Awesome. I'm a sciatica person. If you go into the Life Pro VIP page, Karen, and type DEBBY, always tag me Debbie with a Y if you have a question. You'll find me best that way. But search Debbie with a Y and type in sciatica. I know there's been several. There's a couple of videos where I'll say go here and go to this time in the video, and it'll show you how to do the sciatic. You'll want a stool for that one, and you can do that one seated on a chair or your machine. Quick fix. I always have an answer. I don't mean to be a know-it-all, but I just been doing this longer than most. So anything that you're doing now, for that matter, Diane, for your sciatic, the calf raises, the stretches, there's certain things. The plate is just an environment, and get yourself on a stool and you can incorporate the plate and just get the additional benefit quicker in a lot of cases. So have a great rest of your week. Thank you for joining me, and don't work too hard. Talk to you guys all very soon.